And we're back. Boxing on the go. I'm your host, Noel Muro. Let's get this started. So I hope everyone is staying safe. Everyone is doing what you're supposed to do. Wearing a mask. Going to the stores. Or, washing your hands. Sanitizing. Sanitizing everything, in your house, in your car, all that. So let's get into it. I have a special guest for you guys today. I know I was MIA last week, but I do have a show. This show will actually be in two parts. Had a little bit of technical difficulties, but we got it done. So I have David Dueñez of Leave It in the Ring, host and owner to Leave It in the Ring radio network. He has several shows under that network, and you can pretty much find Leave It in the Ring radio or Leave It in the Ring wherever you find or wherever you consume your podcasts daily. So he has a lot of shows, Aficionados, Boxing, I think it's Boxing Esquire. He has a new one called Boxing, Beer, and Quarantine, and I don't know, he's coming up with new shows all the time. So Let's Talk Fights, with Johnny Sig, and then Kurt Emhoff, and so yeah, go ahead and check that out. But in the meantime, I brought David on, just called him up, see how he was doing, and we decided to do a show on the fly. And I wanted to ask him about the WWE, in Florida, calling that an essential service or an essential business, because while WWE is not, while wrestling is not really, I mean, it's kind of like a combat sport, but not really. But it's still, they're still going on. They're still open. So, just that Triple G, several subjects. So I hope you guys enjoy the show. Here we go. A couple questions. One is, listen, there's really no live events going on right now besides the news, politics, things like that, right? So,
right.
So I mean, how is the WWE in Florida essential? What do you think about that? Because I mean, that's kind. I mean, look, it's a played out. It's kind of a sport because people are still slamming into each other. I mean, even though it's acted out, but they're still slamming each other, and they're still throwing each other on tables and whatever, you know what I mean? But I haven't watched a wrestling match in a lot of years, but I mean, Florida is saying that they're essential. What do you think about that, my man?
I mean, they deem themselves as entertainment, because the fact that it is scripted, it's not really. I mean, you can't deny they're athletes. These guys that do this, okay? You have to be athletic to jump off ropes. You have to be athletic to do half of the flips and jumps that they do. You can't deny that. That's really there's athleticism to it. But the overall event is already written out. It's a script, and these guys, what they basically do are told already who is going to win this match and how far to drag it out. It's really up to them to ad-lib to the script, to own it. How they make it essential, I mean, I don't know. My guess is like everybody else. I think it all has to do with money. I know that Vic McMahon donated like a crazy amount of millions to the Trump administration in the beginning of the year for the new campaign. So I mean, influence is there with the check cut out to them. So I mean, that could be one way of how they got that state and for the government to say, okay, you guys are essential. Somebody, because we had talked about this, and somebody had sent an email to me saying, well, you mentioned football, Dave, but how come football didn't do it? Well, the only answer I can give to that was, well, remember, Donald Trump was upset with a lot of the owners of the NFL because they wouldn't kneel to what he was saying to do, which was fire NFL players, and there was backlash between both parties. So maybe that's why that wasn't deemed essential. I don't know. Those are just things you can speculate. In a playbook of political strongholds. So, but I mean, I agree with you. How does it make it essential? Well, it keeps people home. That's one way, right? Because look, here's the real truth about the WWE. I don't watch it. You don't watch it. Just like you just mentioned earlier, you haven't watched that sport or entertainment in years. Likewise,
since Hulk Hogan, bro.
Right, since Hulk Hogan. That's what I say. Back when I was watching, Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan, that's when I watched it. That's when I was a kid because I believed that they were really getting hit. You watch that. It was the next best thing than watching Batman and Spider-Man and Friends on Saturday mornings, right? So, but there's a lot of people, though, even here in California that I know, and I actually have like two friends that work in the WWE industry, and I know Johnny Zig, who does the radio show, that does the segment, FLS Talk Fights. He's a major WWE fan. So I know there's a lot of value, and going back what I was saying is that the fact is that they traffic a lot of money. More than even, say, boxing. Actually you could say that because their pay-per-view numbers are staggering. They stagger over boxing numbers. Boxing doesn't even, break into the fractions what WWE produces. They're number one in terms of drawing views and buys on pay-per-view. They're number one. Not UFC, not boxing. Combine them, you probably are breaking into a bit into their numbers, but in reality, we're not even there with them. So that may be one way they were able to sell that is by letting them know, especially in Florida State, which is a red state, which you would think that there's going to be a lot of WWE fans and NASCAR and all that, would be essential for them because they would keep their asses at home.
Yeah. Dude, I am I'm very surprised at the numbers that you the statistics that you're telling me right now because damn, dude, listen, I work with grown ass people that are super into wrestling, like WWE, and they go to the events, and every time you put channels, if you have cable or whatever, or you just see a highlight on ESPN or something, or whatever on Twitter, and you see those fans, those arenas are packed. Those people love their wrestling. So right now, those people are loving that shit, and so on. So I mean, for you to tell me that UFC and boxing, or not UFC, let's just say MMA and boxing together, probably most likely can't even get into the numbers of money or a viewership that WWE or any kind of wrestling can compare to. It's kind of. I understand it. I see it.
Well, you have to look at that they were smart enough from the beginning to sell this as a product. Boxing's never been sold as a product. Not even UFC. UFC has done great in marketing and getting it out there. It's such a young sport. They're beyond years of what boxing should have been doing, okay, getting into the OTT, all the things that you see now, UFC already was adapting to it. Not to say boxing wasn't, but boxing, the main heads didn't do it. Really, if you look at the history of when it comes to digital, it's the fans that brought boxing into the digital world, okay? But go with WWE, just from the beginning, from the 80s, before even digital, they were getting into toy marketing, cartoons. They were already establishing a market that no combat sports and you know, that were even thinking about. They were even fathoming about doing that, you know. But also you got to remember this: the reason why boxing and UFC don't stagger the numbers that the WWE does on pay-per-view or even in the arenas, bro, is because WWE still is a family event. Now, they do have, like, very sexual content. The women are wearing, like, you know, these lingerie type of suits, but it's still considered a family event. Most people, think about this. You got kids. You know, my kids, when they were younger, the majority of time when my kids were younger, we went to the movie theaters not to go see an R-rated movie that me and the wife would want to watch, but more likely we watched a PG movie, a cartoon, a Disney movie, because that's what the kids, we wanted to take the kids to have this experience, right? So that's why a lot of these arenas are filled. They're still, I mean, if you look at the crowd of people that go to these WWE events, it's always a family of 3 and 4, and it's normally the father and the wife and the kids, or it's a single father taking his kids and introducing them to this entertainment thing that they grew up on with, right? You know, so that's why it's so huge. Boxing is a very violent sport. You know, a lot of times, you know, the majority of people that go to a boxing event, you know, don't take their kids. It's normally going to be a pack of buddies, you know, or a father and son when the son's a little bit older, right?
Like Coach Larry and like Larry and his buddies over there in Wisconsin.
Right, you know what I mean? I never took my kids to a boxing event because fights break out. You know, it wasn't the right time and environment. Now they're older. I love to take them when the fights, you know, kind of get back up and running and going. But at the time when they were young, I mean, even when they were training, you know, we were going to the amateur circuit. I never took them to a professional pro boxing event and stuff because it was really more for me to kind of let my hair down. Well, the WWE is completely different. It's been sold as a family event. Boxing and even the UFC is not sold as a family event. It's just not.
Yeah, it's not. Let's another thing. Okay, look, UFC 249, which I've said in my last couple shows. I was like, is it going to sink or swim? Is he greedy or selfish, or is he a hero, Dana White? You know, in trying to pursue fights, right? And trying to make it happen. Disney and ESPN were supposed to have UFC 249 on island, or another rumor was right here by Fresno in some kind of Indian.
That's a Taki Palace.
Native American casino or somewhere where they have their own rights. They have their own government, pretty much. Like I forget the name, but okay. Then they got shut down because the governor of California told ESPN and Disney and all the parent companies and all that to pretty much, hey, you got to shut this down. This is not responsible. This is not okay. What do you think? What do you think about that? Because I mean, now the next event that the UFC wants to do is, I believe, in Florida at the WWE. There's rumors at the WWE Center, you know, where they're holding all these WWE WrestleMania and all these matches. So, what do you think about that? I mean, because if they're going to do it, obviously everyone has to get tested. I don't know that for sure, but but is Bob Arum which promoter is gonna follow that if UFC is doing that at the WWE Center in Florida if it happens?
I mean, that's hard to even answer because things change every day. As we're seeing on the news.
It does.
No, everything's changing now. President Trump has got on behind the mic and said that it's up now to the states to start opening up. And
it's up to the states anyway.
Right. He wants to open the economy back up. There's been protesting. Here in California, people want their businesses up and running again. So already it's being thrown out that boxing may return a lot quicker if this happens. If California, which right now I saw on Facebook a few moments ago of guys that I know that own boxing gyms are already stating, hey, I'm going to open up the gym this week. We're being told to open up again as long as we keep that 7 feet distance.
How are you going to do that at a boxing gym, though?
Well, I already saw that one of the guys from Bad to the Bone, what he did is he took out, because he had a punching bag every 2 feet, he took out the center 2, and now it keeps him at 7 feet, and he's limiting the classes, amount of people that can come in, to try to keep them at this distance. Now, look, do I agree with that? I don't necessarily agree with that yet, because, as anything, if you go back and look at history, anytime we get hit by any kind of virus or something, it's always the second wave that's worse than the first wave. And that's because everybody thinks it's normal, and we start going. Right now, like today, going to the store, I'm wearing my mask, and I see all these people, like let's say 30 people at Target, and out of those 30 people, I probably counted maybe 5 of those people had a mask. Everybody else did it. Everybody else. What was that?
That's horrible. They should have.
It is.
To protect themselves and to protect others.
It is, but that's just the way, like I said, we don't know how things are going to go back. Like I said, that's why it's really hard to say if Bob Arum or is Dana White or is DAZN and Matchroom and Golden Boy, are they going to follow suit and try to go to Florida and hold a boxing event? We don't know.
Dana White is going to be the first guy to do it. And he pretty much on May 9th, I think, is in UFC. He's either going to do it in Vegas for some help at the headquarters. I don't know how they're going to do it, because the Nevada State Athletic Commission has already banned any kind of combat sports from happening indefinitely. And
here's what I think what Dana's doing, bro. And Dana, and it's Dana and everybody else that's involved, their whole board, okay, which is really smart in what they're doing.
I know.
What they're doing is, what they're doing is throwing things out. They're throwing shit against the wall and hoping for it to stick. And what I mean by that is that when you start throwing things out, eventually, if the press jumps on it, starts eating it up, and they make enough noise, it could actually pressure a governor of a state to say, okay, let's go ahead and do it. Just go ahead and do it. If by them saying, I'm going to open up an island, which I never believed when Dana White was saying that, because that's just ridiculous. You can't just open up an island, buy an island, and then open it up within a month or so. That's going to take time, I mean, that just makes no sense when I heard that, okay, because anybody knows buying real estate, this doesn't happen overnight. Even if you bought it within 30 days, you still got to, cut up all the red tape. You still got to, organize getting medical over there. You got to know, you got to set up for boarding. I mean, you're looking at top 3 months out, of anything like that. So what I think what Dana's doing is just throwing different names, Tachi Palace, an island, now Florida, this and that, because the truth matter is he wants it in Vegas. Why does he want it in Vegas? Because that's where he's going to get his money worth. That's where he's going to get the money bang from, So I think that's brilliant what he's doing, is by throwing as much shit on the wall and seeing what slides down faster, and that's what a businessman would do. Businessmen are always going to throw curveballs to see which one's going to get past the bat.
Dude, No, no, and you make a lot of sense. One island, from what I heard on Joe Rogan's podcast, was a rumor saying that he's going to have these, and he actually did. There was a report saying that he trademarked UFC Island and Fight Island. He trademarked those things. And it was supposed to be on Mark Epstein's, is it Mark Epstein or Mike Epstein? His island, the one that do shit on over there with all these other billionaires and shit.
Yeah, the pedophile guy, the guy that committed suicide, or supposed to be suicide.
Yeah. Quote unquote committed suicide.
Right. Yeah.
So, anyways, let's move on from all this other shit. Let's do. Do you think Triple G is going to reunite with Abel Sanchez or no? Because I was listening to Lance Pugmire and Mike Carpenter on their, on the from the Athletic on the, on Mike Chris Mannix's podcast. I listened to that earlier, a little bit of it as I was cooking, and they were bringing that up. So they were saying pretty much Triple G, his best chance at beating Canelo is reuniting with Abel Sanchez. And what do you think of that?
If the money's right, I don't see why Abel wouldn't want to do it. I think that was the overall reason.
Is that the best way for Triple G? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry.
What I'm saying is that the reason why the separation was what happened, the reason the separation happened in the beginning was because of the money. Abel Sanchez believed, and I think everybody believes that he deserved a bigger cut. It came down to money. Just like any partnership, it all comes down to money. When you're a guy that picks somebody up from the beginning, and you put the bolts and the nuts into this for the wheel to start spinning, you're the mechanic. You deserve to have a maybe 30, 40, even 50%. It all depends. There's a value, and he had a value. It wasn't like what the other trainer that Triple G brought in of his last two fights. It was an old trainer, guy he had worked with, but nobody knew who he was. The value wasn't there, and you saw that the value didn't help or what that trainer brought. So Abel Sanchez, we know where he could put Gennady Golovkin. So it just comes down to money. Does Gennady Golovkin and Tom Lawfer and the team finally say, okay, we're going to give you what you want? And, like I've said on my show, listen, we don't necessarily know, was there still enough in the pot, in the equity pot, to give to Abel Sanchez?
Yes,
that's
sir.
What everybody's missing here. Everybody's like, well, it's easy to give him money. You know what? It's easy for us to say Abel Sanchez deserves it. But as we've had, like I had Manny Robles on the show, a lot of times the manager takes 35, 45%. Why does the manager need that? So out of that 100%, who's to say that Tom Lawfer didn't have? And I'm not saying he does. This is just an assumption, or just a hypothetical theory. Is who's to say that he didn't have 45 or 50% of Gennady Golovkin? So it left nearly nothing but to give that 5% or 10% to Abel Sanchez. So this is something that Gennady Golovkin has to go back and do some soul searching to see whether or not he can sacrifice something or go and tell whoever has a bigger chunk of the pie that, you know what, you don't bring that value. He does, and I need him in order to get over this hump, which is Canelo. That, to me, would be the only way I see Abel Sanchez coming back, because if I'm a betting man, if I'm a guy that's been told that my value wasn't nothing, okay, saying I don't need you, I can do this shit on my own, and then after a year, you come back to me and say, well, you know what, fuck, dude, I turned out to be, I was wrong. Can you come back? Who do you think has the upper hand on the table? Me. I now have the negotiating power, And that's the one thing, you know, in Business 101 is you look for your right execution in business, and you make sure you always carry that back card. And Gennady Golovkin, they didn't do that. They immediately, you know, allowed him to walk away because of money. It didn't seem to me, and I could be wrong because I didn't know. I'm not that fly on the wall that saw how they were trying to negotiate and repair this. But it really looked like it was like, take it or leave it, Abel. Take it or leave it. And Abel was like, forget it, because you know what? That back card for him was, you're not going to find anybody to still train you and make you competitive and keep you competitive. Now, people think about this. People automatically, after leaving Abel Sanchez, even when he lost that third match, which you can argue that it could either win a draw or Gennady Golovkin won that fight, that Triple G looked old. For an old guy, though, when he fought Canelo the second time in that rematch, bro, he was very competitive. And he won the later rounds in that fight. But it was after, when Gennady Golovkin cut loose Abel Sanchez, then when he started to look like a very ordinary middleweight, that's when people started coming down on him, saying he's done. He's no longer the goods, blah, 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 blah. And how many times do we hear that and see that? I mean, look at Roman Chocolito Gonzalez. People wrote him off immediately. Immediately. This guy's done. He's over with, blah, blah, blah. So I only say that he looked terrible because he lost something that was there that he became used to, and also gave him good advice. Whether it wasn't the complete advice, you know, like, you know, the body work was gone. But I've always said it takes two to attack a plan. You can tell the fighter everything in the book of that playbook. It's up to them to execute it.
Versus, was it Steve Rolls, or what's his name?
Well, Steve Rose, I mean, yeah, that guy was a sacrificial lamb. So, I mean, he got hit a lot. I didn't buy too much of him getting hit a lot.
Derevchenko fucked him up.
Yeah. That was something different, you know, and that's what I'm saying is that, look, when the truth is that there's not going to, you can't really teach him much. Okay, this guy's been fighting since he was a kid.
Yeah.
You know, he is who he is. But you can remind him, or you could reignite the spark in him. And could Abel Sanchez do that right now? I'm not sure. You know, I'm not sure. But going back is money wise, who's got the leverage? Abel Sanchez does. If you're asking him to come back,
exactly like you said. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, but can he revive him? Can he make him, you know, could he get him back to a raw form that we saw him when he fought the likes of like Martirosyan and you know, Stevenson, guys like that? I mean, I've always said this. If you look out through history of all the great fighters, when they finally fought top tier level competition, it always made them look a step back normal. They didn't look that like invincible.
It really showed. It really showed the true colors of them, huh?
Yeah, it shows how human they are. You know, it really does show how human they are. You know, I mean, look at Inoue. Inoue, the monster, was just blowing through guys, but gets in there with a veteran and a guy that's been around the block more than once. Nonito Dornier. And look, he went, you know, tooth and nail with this guy.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
He didn't look that you know, that monster that everybody was talking about, because when you start stepping up in the levels of competition, you know, that's when you start really seeing how human you really are. You know, and that's every fighter. Lomachenko, look, Lomachenko got him with Jorge Linares. You know, people already say, oh, he's old already. You know, Lopez should knock him out. He's old. But the truth is, it's just a step of levels. That's why, like myself, I like Teofimo Lopez, but I want to see what happens when he gets in there with a guy that's not afraid of his punch, with a guy that's going to know how to step out at the right distance to counterpunch him. You know, like Ryan Garcia. explosive, quick hand speed. But we don't really know where to gauge him at yet because he's never really fought anybody that can truly test him. That we could really find out, does he really hold the sand of being one of the top elite guys? I don't know that. Until he gets in there with somebody that can put that fire underneath his feet, then we're going to find out how good he really is.
Yeah, dude. It's because like Triple G was like the boogeyman of the middleweight era, the
right.
middleweight division, and well, he made ground over here in the U.S. around 2011, 2012, and he was just running through guys, but then like Chris Mannix and his what they were saying, Mike Coppinger and Lance Pugmire, they're saying. And they brought up a really good point, and I'm sure we've all talked about it several times over the years. And it was just like when Andre Ward, he said let's fight at 168. He's all, let's fight Triple G, and Triple G didn't want none of that pie. So
you know what? Here's the thing. I had Abel Sanchez and Gennady Golovkin on. When they said that, my show was one of the first to have them both on. We were covering Gennady Golovkin before anybody was really talking about him. We were covering them from the beginning, and when they came on, here's the thing that
hey, hold on. Let me stop you right there. I want you to share which episode is that and where to find it.
Well, it's on Leave Ring. I couldn't tell you what episode because we've done so many, man. I don't know. What year
was it in?
Geez, I would say back in 2013, 14.
Okay.
So
anyone who's listening, 2013, 14, Triple G and Abel Sanchez on the Leave It in the Ring or Around the Ring or what?
Yeah. No, leave it in the ring.
Leave it in the ring. Check it out.
And so I think that what people need to clarify is that it wasn't really till later Gennady Golovkin started saying it, but in the beginning, Gennady Golovkin didn't even speak English. And it was Abel Sanchez who really pushed the Mexican style. He pushed that persona. And I remember having him on, and Abel Sanchez was doing all the talking for Gennady Golovkin. He was the one that was really saying, we can go from 168 to 154. Any one of those weights, it doesn't matter. We could fight anybody. And this is when they were calling out, Miguel Cotto, Floyd Mayweather, anybody that crossed their path because they were trying to make a name for themselves. They were trying to find the right name to attach themselves to. So that's why those things were being brought up. Andre Ward was being brought up because he was an Olympian. He was the king at 168. He had won the Super Six. So this was Abel Sanchez really honestly pushing this market wagon into the fans and into the face of fans and stuff, So I never really held Gennady Golovkin to that of him really wanting to face Andre Ward at 168. It was really more his trainer saying that because they were trying to get that notoriety finally from fans to get recognition. They wanted to be recognized, and it was a brilliant thing that they did. It was brilliant. Remember the hashtag all the belts. That was a thing of theirs. Yeah. They wanted all the belts, no matter what. And they were chasing down Canelo. The reason they were chasing Canelo is because Canelo's got a big name and he's a cash cow. If you really think about it, that's what he was chasing.
He's the golden dude.
And I remember this when Cotto had just beat Sergio Martinez. Cotto had the title, and I remember saying, so you guys want Miguel Cotto, and Abel Sanchez immediately said, we don't want Miguel Cotto, we want the belt. That's all we care about. But then that later disappeared when they got a belt. All of that stopped when they started hunting down Canelo, who wasn't even a true 160-pounder. Remember that. After Canelo beat Miguel Cotto, his team and him were smart enough to say, we're not ready, we're not fully developed to face this guy. And that was the smartest thing for them to do, was to drop that belt, because I don't think he was ready to face Gennady Golovkin. You know, and a lot of people forget this, that boxing is a very strategic sport. You know, I remember sitting across Freddie Roach and even having him on Leaving the Ring. I told him from the beginning when he had Manny Pacquiao that he was a great matchmaker / trainer. And he looked at me and he says, that's all part of boxing. If you don't know how to maneuver your fighters up the ladder and win facing opponents, you have no business in this sport.
Yeah. Damn, dude. That's damn, you're speaking a lot of truth here. I don't know if the listeners are going to be able to process everything.
Sorry, man. It's not me. It's Cerveza talking.
You and me both, bro.
Yeah.
Okay, right now. Hold on. Right now.
Stay tuned for episode 2. We'll release it here shortly. Everyone stay safe out there. I'm your host, Noel Muro. Follow Trilosophy. Go to trilosophy.com. Trilosophy on Instagram at Trilosophy. You can follow me on Twitter at Moruso71. MORUSO71. Stay tuned for that second